Hi, everyone, and welcome to Franchise Tagged. My name is Ray, and this is Aaron. Here on Franchise Tag, we like to get you set up for success and get you that championship. Being this our first episode, we're going to be talking about our specific draft strategies, what we want to be looking for in the draft coming up, and different strategies to go through, as well as some guys we're in on and some guys we might be out on. And then we're going to wrap it up with some questions or maybe some little trivia games. Let's roll right into some specific draft strategies. I know that for myself and what I'm going to be looking for in the upcoming draft, I'm going to be taking a look at taking some running backs early in the draft and focusing more on taking those premier tight ends. And we're going to talk about that a little more in the episode. And you're going to really see some points when we get to the end of the episode, and it's going to all correlate. But taking those early running backs, setting yourself up with hard to find guys, and then getting those premier tight ends is key, because you can get those later round receivers to couple with those strong running backs. Do you agree, Aaron?
I would agree. I think that the early round premium running backs, pay up for your running backs. That's where you're gonna make your most money. Normally, typically, rounds 3 and 4 running backs aren't really they don't have a high hit percentage, is what I'm trying to say. So they don't really hit all of the time. There's a few times that they do, but it's normally less than 20% that they hit. So 2 out of 10 roughly. Those rounds 3 and 4 where you're going to start looking for your wide receiver ones, if you haven't grabbed someone like a Devontae or Michael Thomas, Tyreek Hill type person in rounds 1 or 2, because there wasn't really any running back that you found that you like better. But yeah, I would agree with most of that. And then we both implement the draft strategy of late round quarterback. Typically, you don't want to waste a roster spot, even though Patrick Mahomes is the best to do it year in, year out for the last 3 years in a row. You're going to be able to get a QB1 in the later rounds 9, 10, 11, 12, that you don't have to pay so much capital for.
Absolutely. And I think that even if you're going to be taking a quarterback at maybe the 6 to 7, 8 round, you're going to get the value back that you wouldn't have got, say, if you would have taken Patrick Mahomes in this last draft. You paid up for him, and when you paid up for him, you missed out on guys. Let's say you got him in the second round. You missed out on guys like...
I'll give you a name, Tyreek Hill. If you're going 203 to 204, you miss out on Tyreek Hill. I think finished wide receiver 1 or 2 on the season. Devontae obviously finished 1, but Tyreek finished 2. The inconsistency people don't like, it kind of burns them, but he did finish 2. But yeah, like you're saying, literally they play on the same team. But if you draft a Patrick, his mom doesn't like Patty, but if you draft a Patrick Mahomes, you're missing out on Tyreek Hill, possibly a late round Travis Kelsey. I know George Kittle got hurt, but he's normally right around the turn. Trying to think of a later round running backs that really popped off this year.
Let's talk about maybe you could have got a Jonathan Taylor that hit for you at the end of the season, or you spending up on that quarterback probably pushed you back a little further on the running backs. You probably had to take another receiver because you want to stay fluid in your drafts. And now you're struggling to have that second running back on your team. You probably had to take maybe a guy like Todd Gurley or Le'Veon Bell or something like that in the third. And when you look back on it, maybe Todd Gurley was successful for you midway through the season, but he really hit a wall coming around that turn, and you could not find success. The main purpose of me saying that you wanted to take that premier tight end, and if you could, for the listeners out there, take a look at the last 3 years of your own fantasy franchise and tell me what the number one guy, the guy that won the ship, what did he have on his roster? I'd say about 9 times out of 10, he had one of the top 3 tight ends, a Travis Kelsey, or in last year, maybe a George Kittle or a Darren Waller. Not having that premier tight end really hurts you in the long run. When you have one, it opens up an extra roster spot. It opens up more of your, if you're using a fab system, more of your fab. If you're using a waiver system, lets you go and grab somebody else that you're not spending up on the waiver for. And I think that is a really strong key into getting yourself prepared for success going into the playoffs. And that's what you're trying to do, is get yourself a shot to get into the playoffs and get yourself a ship.
I would agree. I was a firm believer in I'm not going to worry about tight end early. I'm going to worry about tight end later, around the time I take my quarterbacks, the 8th through the 12th round, normally for the tight end, because you have your top 3 guys and then everyone else is just basically a shooting match. So then I was just going to stream tight end year in, year out. But you made the point. You take one of the top tight ends early, you pay that premium for it, you're essentially getting that spot on lockdown all year except for the one bye week, and then you're basically getting 20. If you're in a fab system, you're getting 20-30 extra fab a year, not having to pay for tight ends and try to beat someone to get this guy and pay more money than this guy to make sure that you have that roster spot. And the same can be said with waiver priority. You're not wasting the number one waiver priority on the week to try to get a tight end to beat the person that week who happens to have a Travis Kelsey or a George Kittle, to try to get the best tight end, where you can go and you can spend that on a rookie running back who's about to come off a bye, who's going to get the workload, things like that. So
absolutely,
that's where I would agree.
And to really close out on that, when you have one of those George Kittles, when you have one of those Travis Kelce's, your opponent not having those tight ends, it puts a little bit of fear in them, makes them make a little more risky moves.
To put in perspective with this, Travis Kelsey would finish as the wide receiver 5 on average every year in fantasy football. To just put perspective on it.
We're going to get into that in a little bit here.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and get into the guys we're in on, and we'll have a little discussion on what we're going to be expecting going forward on these second-year guys that could be breaking out.
All right, so, I would like to kind of start this one off, if you don't mind. I'd like to steal your thunder and get my picks out there before you get to just bless everyone with your good ones.
Yeah,
there's one that we both definitely agree on of yours. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you the preface of mine. Mine are going to hinge on quarterbacks. So as you can tell, my first one is going to be T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals, with Joe Burrow out there as a rookie and T. Higgins out there as a rookie. I am super high on T. Higgins this year. He was trending in the top 12 week in, week out with Joe Burrow from week 2 on. The man was a target hog. He basically kicked A.J. Green out the door, and Tyler Boyd was now the number 2. I know A.J. Green was 31 years old and coming off of injuries from last year, but he's put the nail in the coffin for A.J. Green basically being done. I have high hopes for him. I think he has, if Joe Burrow's back and they both stay healthy all year, he will be a double-digit touchdown man with over 1,000 yards receiving.
Now, just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, and to give a little bit of a news update, if you guys haven't seen on Joe Burrow, their expectations are that he's going to be starting the season and that he's going to be making it back. And I think that he's right at the 10-month mark of that knee injury that he had. Could be pretty difficult to come back from right off the gate, so you might want to temper some expectations when you do take him, and hopefully you can get him in maybe the 5th or 6th round, where you're really going to capitalize on some value later on in the season. But with a guy like that, I think that you should really stay patient with what you're going to see throughout the season, and make sure that you're not expecting, a Devontae Adams that you got in the 5th round. It's not going to happen like that. Joe Burrow's still got to come back from some injury, and I think that it's going to be slow out the gate. They're going to definitely get Joe Mixon involved a little more. He got hurt pretty early in the season, and it looked like he was starting to come along. So they might have a little more balanced offense going forward. But I don't think that necessarily hurts T. Higgins. I think that that's, in general, going to give him a little more help with having a real running back behind him.
They have to shore up the offensive line. They have to shore up their offensive line in this draft. Burrow was scrambling for his life. But, for example, as of right now, today's date, average draft position, Tyler Boyd is going at 608. And T. Higgins is going at the 8-10. I would much rather have T. Higgins at the 8-10, the back of the 8th, than Tyler Boyd in the middle of the 6th. Yeah, Tyler Boyd's going around Chase Claypool, who we'll talk about later, Brandon Cooks, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, DJ Moore, Jarvis Landry, Cooper Kupp. He's going around the same time that these guys are going, so I would much rather have a T. Higgins in the 8th.
Now, do you mind me asking, who would you rather have? Would you rather have a Cooper Kupp, or would you rather have T. Higgins? That's a tough one because of Matt Stafford. You've got a completely different situation.
Yeah, Matt Stafford elevates that team way more than Jared Goff did. But if it's me and there's a round difference between the two of them, I might reach for Kupp in the 6th instead of Tyler Boyd and take T. Higgins in the 7th.
Yeah,
I might reach, but that's my personal preference.
And I think the T. Higgins ADP is going to go up a little more as we get closer to draft and as you hear a little more news about Joe Burrow, because we are sitting here in March and they still have to go through a whole draft and get to training camp before we have a real estimate as to where T. Higgins is going to go. But I do like your take on him. I am in on T. Higgins as well, if you can get him for the right price. I think anything higher than the 6th, and it's getting a little risky, but I like him in the 6th and beyond. And that's a definite guy that could be breaking out for you later on in the draft.
Yeah, I picked him up in our keeper league. I picked him up off waivers last year, week two. Yeah, I picked him up off of waivers, and it worked out really well there for about 6 weeks, and then So anyway, so you got Ray.
All right, so my guy that I'm gonna be in on, I'm gonna save the best for last. Really, I'm gonna really savor that one. Is Justin Herbert at his current ADP? You're looking at getting him right about at the late 6th, early 7th, and I think that's when I'm really comfortable taking a shot on a guy that had 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and set a standard for rookies going forward. This guy was an absolute stud, and it didn't look like the wheels came off at all. He had injury around him with Austin Eckler. He had injury at his offensive line throughout the season, and Keenan Allen's the only guy really that was available for him throughout the season. I think if they addressed in the draft, if they addressed that offensive line, shored up a little more, they have Austin Eckler going forward, and they go and get a guy that can be opposite of Keenan Allen. Yeah, shoot him to the moon. Shoot him to the moon.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, the Chargers have a great defense. There's no lie about that, right? They took a lot of hits to their defense this year. Do you think that's why they passed so much?
I do.
Think it was an injury issue or a scheming issue with Anthony Lynn? Because Anthony Lynn, he likes to run the ball. But Austin Eckler did get hurt, like you said. So
exactly. And I think that the defense does have something to do with the amount of times that Herbert was dropping back to pass. But I also think that having a year with an actual training camp, an actual workout in person and not being digital with COVID being around this last season, I think it's going to really be beneficial to Justin Herbert. It was pretty clear they didn't know what they really had, because if they're going with old busted Tyrod Taylor, I don't think that
be nice.
I don't think that they would have stuck around with Taylor even going into week 1.
It's the same thing as the Browns, though, to 2 years ago with Baker. I know Hugh Jackson is not the best head coach, clearly, by his record, but it's the same thing that can be said for Anthony Lynn. Like, you're going to go with Tyrod because he's a vet, but yet the rookie steps in, takes over. Literally, Baker took over second half because Tyrod got hurt, or literally halfway through the first quarter because Tyrod got hurt, shows out, gets the Browns their first win in who knows how long, and the Bud Light chest gets unlocked for all of Cleveland. Free beer, and then gets the punctured lung, unfortunately, and it kind of ends his season. But Herbert steps up 10 minutes notice. I think the dude's going to be really, really good. I am in on Herbert, but I'm not in on Herbert on the 6th and 7th round. I think if he was a late 8th to 9th round, I might be. That would when I'd start looking for a quarterback. Because we'll get into it in a second. Actually, I'll bring it up right now. Dak Prescott coming back. I know he's coming back off a gruesome injury, but you can get Dak looking at the 6th, 7th, probably this year, probably more like the 9th. Russell Wilson's typically, even though he's hot and cold and inconsistent, he's always a QB1. He's still, starting to get drafted late 5th, early 6th round.
And this is all dependent on where people are going to be falling and where they're going to be going. If Russell Wilson leaves Seattle and goes to, let's say the news right now is saying that he's tied to Chicago. He goes to Chicago, that's going to be a completely different situation for him. Although Nagy wants to run the ball a lot, and it's similar to Pete Carroll's system.
I disagree.
Oh, you don't?
I think Nagy wants to run zone reads and throw the football, but he can't do it with Mitch Trubisky.
Well, I think that they have a comparable receiving core, maybe not so comparable because of DK and Tyler Lockett, but you would see Russell Wilson take a hit, and he would be falling right around where Justin Herbert would go in a draft because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
So who do you got next?
That's fair. Next for me, once again, it all hinges upon the quarterback. We just talked about Dak Prescott. I'm going with CeeDee Lamb. I am super excited about CeeDee Lamb. Did you guys see this rookie last year come out and dominate? Everyone wondered why Dallas took him. They had Amari Cooper, they have Michael Gallup, but they took CeeDee Lamb, and he still really, to me, was the brightest receiver on the field when he was on the field. They put him in the slot, filled the Cole Beasley role. That dude's a baller too, but still CeeDee Lamb just basically took over the whole offense, and he did it with Andy Dalton. He still had yardage wise, I believe he was a 1,000-yard receiver. Let me pull this up really quick. Let me vet myself. 935-yard receiver on 74 receptions.
And that is with Andy Dalton.
That is with Andy Dalton for all but what, week 5 on.
And
do what?
and Ben DiNucci.
That's true. So CeeDee Lamb had 74 receptions, 935 yards with 5 touchdowns, and that's a 12.6 yards per reception on average. What's up?
Where would you feel comfortable taking CeeDee Lamb?
I would feel comfortable taking CeeDee Lamb probably in the 4th. I would really like it if you drop to the 5th, strictly because per ADP, CeeDee Lamb right now is going 504, and Amari Cooper is going 512. So it's CD, Deontay, Chris Godwin, and then Amari Cooper. There's like 2 receivers right in between them. Amari's obviously the one. He's been the one. But I think CD's going to be the 2 this year. They saw enough last year where Michael Gallup's probably going to catch the pine, if not get traded, cut for cap casualty with the salary cap this year. But I would take him middle to back of the 4th is where I'd start looking at taking him. Kind of look at the other teams around you in your draft and then go from there. If there's someone with 2 receivers already and they might not need a receiver, you might be able to make it. But if there's someone with 3 running backs, 1 receiver going into the 4th or 5th, he's likely going to get taken. So
would you rather have, and this is just based off of what you just said about their ADP, I found that kind of shocking that Amari Cooper was so low. Mm-hmm. Would you rather have Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb? Because they're right around the same time, or right around the same ADP. So that's a decision you might have to actually make. If the board actually falls to ADP, which I know you guys know, a lot of home leagues don't actually get to the ADP per se all the way across the board. But let's put it out there right now. If you had to choose between CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, who are you going to take?
If Dak's coming back and they're not franchise tagging him this year, I'm taking CD. If Dak's not coming back, I'm going to take the surefire number 1 who's guaranteed to get targets in the McCarthy system, which is always going to be the wide receiver 1. We've seen it for years at Green Bay. We've seen it for, this past year in Dallas. But like I said, man, it all depends on Dak Prescott. There's so many other outside variables for this one. I would be hard pressed, honestly. If I'm the dude who has the 3 running backs and I'm in the 4th round and I'm looking at wide receiver right here and it's, Allen Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, and Amari Cooper, I'm taking Allen Robinson for the sheer targets. But if it's between CeeDee and Amari and I've got 3 running backs, I'm looking for my first wide receiver 1, I'm going to take the shot on CeeDee. Because then you can turn around in the 5th round and pick up somebody else that you're going to need.
I see.
All right, let me put you this way. Sorry, sorry to cut you off again. It's easier to stream wide receivers on the year than it is to stream running backs.
It is true. And
if you take your shot on someone, go ahead.
I think that CD does have a higher ceiling than a lot of the other guys that you're seeing just because of his athletic profile. And if Dak is back, that he's gonna get the work. Mm-hmm. So There's a lot worse guys you can take a shot on right around the fourth, fifth round on
Yeah,
receiver.
most definitely. And that's the point. If you're going to take a shot and you're going to miss, take a shot and miss on wide receivers because there's plenty of them to recover with.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on to my last in guy and the guy that I think everybody's here to see.
This is what I'm jealous about.
Antonio Gibson. Now, I understand that the sample size for him was a little smaller than a lot of the other second-round running backs. Or, I'm sorry, the second-year breakout running backs or the rookie running backs last year. His sample size was a little smaller, not as small as, let's say, Cam Akers. But when you look at the guy and you watch the games and you're seeing the work as a whole, you're seeing J.D. McKissick sitting around 80 receptions, but not a whole lot of rushing attempts. I think he was at 80 rushing attempts. You have to think that going forward and sitting at the end of the last season, you were seeing it a little more. The 35, 36 receptions that Gibson got were definitely starting to be on the uptick.
I'm not trying to cut you off here. Timeout. J.D. McKissick had 80 receptions in Washington?
Yes, he did.
No way.
Yes, he did.
That is boggling to me. And Antonio Gibson had how many?
36.
Bro, that baffles me. I'm full in. I am full in with you with the Antonio Gibson deal. I do not know why they kept throwing the ball to J.D. McKissick. Antonio Gibson is way more explosive, way better at cutting, speed, catching, receiving. He's a better all-around running back than J.D. McKissick.
Absolutely. And you saw it towards the end of the season where his uptick on receptions really started taking over about week 9, week 10. But if he can get a little bit more like the 40 reception to 50 reception range, plus a little more efficiency on offense, I think that you're going to really see a guy that's going to take off.
Do you know where he finished?
You have to think that they're going to address the quarterback situation there. They let go of Alex Smith. You don't know if they're going to stick with Tyler Heineke. I doubt it, even though he didn't look too bad. But you couple that with a more efficient quarterback, a little more reliance on Gibson himself, and not so much reliance on J.D. McKissick, which was the beginning of the season. I think you're looking at a guy that can be a huge breakout, especially sitting at his ADP at around the sixth round. So you can get a guy like Gibson in the 6th round. I'm all in.
I would agree, 100%.
I'd be comfortable taking him even higher, and maybe in the 3rd round. I'd be comfortable with taking that and making that reach.
Running back 2?
Yeah, I would be comfortable with him at my running back 2, and I don't think that you're going to find a whole lot of people that would disagree.
I'm definitely not disagreeing. Last year, I took him in our keeper league, and I had to reach for him in the 5th because I knew you wanted him, and you happened to be behind me in the draft, so you could have got him that same round or across on the turn. To put in perspective, dude had Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. Dude had Heineke, which that dude's a baller, as we found out there towards the end of the season. And was doing it with Alex Smith, which Alex Smith is no slouch, but he's been known for more of a game manager rather than a baller. But 170 rushes for 795 yards with 11 touchdowns. That's ridiculous, dude. For a rookie to get 11 touchdowns on a bad offense.
Absolutely.
On a bad offense.
I think that what you're going to see next year is Washington take a real step. And the real basis on why I think he's going to be so productive and so integrated into this offense is because what they're trying to do on defense. Their defense was lights out last year. They were great.
Chase Young's a bad
they're
man.
only going to get better. Exactly. They're only going to get better. All they had to have was a little bit more consistency on offense, and I think that what you were seeing is a little more of the secondary weapons outside of Terry McLaurin kind of step up with Logan Thomas, with some of the other guys that they had out there. So it's just going to take a little bit more consistency, and you're going to really see the value behind Gibson over some guys that we're going to talk about in just a minute.
I think the little more consistency on offense, and they go from a 7-19 to a 9-7 or 10-6, and actually look good winning the division and getting to the playoffs. Because we've kind of forget that they're still a playoff team last year. You got to see the extra week with them. even though it
Yeah.
wasn't the best playoff team or the best division. Still, I'm with you on that one.
Absolutely.
For
So,
sure.
who's your first guy that you're out on?
I would like to give a few honorable mentions in this category to kind of pay
Okay.
attention to. See if you can't snag him in the draft. Brandon Ayuk, obviously, with the 49ers. There's word on the street they're looking for a quarterback. He came in as a rookie. Debo can't seem to stay healthy for a season. He definitely showed out this year. Laviscus Chenault, they're first in the draft. Chances are they're going to take
Trevor Lawrence.
Thank you. Drew a blank there. Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson, which I think that dude's just going to be a baller. Hopefully he'll step up and do what he needs to do. Should be a quick learner, hopefully, so look for him. And then DJ Chark, obviously, will still be there too, so you're not going to be able to double one of them because the other one's going to burn you. You know what I mean? So you kind of get a lock in there. So pay attention to his ADP, where he's going. And if Aaron Jones is out of Green Bay, you guys better swoop up A.J. Dillon. This man, in the one game he got the full workload, looked like he is a seasoned vet. So definitely pay attention to the Green Bay backfield situation because he could be a potential 8th round running back 1 at the end of season.
Now, I'm going to preface this by letting you guys know that we are both huge Packer fans.
Big Packers fans, but
I will say that if Aaron Jones leaves, I don't think they're going to give Jamal Williams a call. They're probably going to bring in a guy if both of those guys are gone. They're probably going to go and draft a guy 3rd day of the draft. And you're going to see more of A.J. Dillon, obviously, but it's not going to be all out on A.J. Dillon. I don't think that's how they want to do it. They didn't do it this year with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon. So I think that that's what Matt LaFleur wants to do. I think he wants to have a, committee running back group, but he's going to be the dude and he's going to get the work. And you're going to see, you've seen in this offense before, a running back have 19 touchdowns. So who says it couldn't happen again? And with a guy like A.J. Dillon with those thighs, he's going in the end zone.
I mean, he did carry about 5 people, so.
Yeah.
But no, go ahead, kick us off with who you're cautious or maybe completely out on.
Okay, so first guy that I'm really out on, really out, is Jalen Hurts. I think that the arrival of Jalen Hurts is going to actually push guys like Justin Herbert back in the draft. People are going to think that this is the next Lamar Jackson, the guy that's going to rush for 1,000, throw for 4. It's just not going to happen. You saw in the last game, he got pulled, and I think that was more to stop tape from him getting out for other teams to kind of start teeing off on him. They're going to try and capitalize on the no tape look that Lamar Jackson had when he came in into Baltimore. The deficiencies of Jalen Hurts' game are his lack of accuracy in all medias of throwing, and his decision making was poor in that last game when he had the chance to even throw.
He is a run-first quarterback.
Exactly. And he's a run-first quarterback that is nowhere near as athletic as a Lamar Jackson, and I think that's where he's going to be drafted at. His ADP is all over the place. You're going to see it all over the place on the internet, but I would venture to say that somebody's going to take a chance here in most home leagues at about the 4th round, and I think that's way too high for a guy that I don't know if he can complete passes on a consistent level, especially with the fact that they don't have a real receiving core right now. They don't. I mean, they let go of Deshaun Jackson. Alshon Jeffrey is about 1,000 years old. He's gone.
Jalen Reagor was a bust.
Jalen Reagor is a bust so far, but is he the dude? Is he the guy? I don't think so.
Philadelphia cannot wait around for Devontae Parker to break out in year 5 like he did in Miami. They can't do that. They don't. Number one, they got lucky and got bailed out with the freaking Carson Wentz contract swap to the trade to the Colts, and they got a lot of money back, but they need an offensive line. They need wide receivers. They're going to need a second running back because I don't think whoever comes in, they're not going to give Miles Sanders all the work, even though they probably should. They're going to need some help on defense, especially kind of in the secondary. So Philadelphia is just a bad team in general. So
exactly, they're not set up for success right now. You're going to have a bad offense. You're going to have a weaker defense.
Sorry to all the
But
Philly fans.
I'm just all out on Jalen Hurts, where he's going to be drafted, I think, and what people's expectations are going to be going forward towards Jalen Hurts.
I would agree.
I just think that he's just too overvalued right now, and I've seen a lot of things floating around. Different fantasy podcasts and fantasy analysts are saying, "Oh, Jalen Hurts is the dude." I don't think so. I'm not in.
He might be okay for a while, but because teams have already seen the Lamar Jackson before him, which they are the same type of quarterback.
Just a way less athletic guy.
Exactly. But so they already have a scheme. They can look at tape on Lamar Jackson and be like, yo, we are playing a quarterback that is the exact same person, just not as athletic. So they already can really scheme against them. Lamar kind of ruined that for rushing quarterbacks who don't have very good accuracy and can't throw that well.
I think that he didn't necessarily ruin it for maybe the reasons you even think either, because it's not that, they just know this guy is going to be running the ball first. It's that he's more athletic than 99% of the guys that are going to be coming and trying to mimic his game.
And Philadelphia's rush offense is not as good as last year's Baltimore rush offense.
No, not at all. And
so
it's just you're trying too many things, and I think that's what Philadelphia wants to do. Try and fit that Baltimore mold, but they don't have the Baltimore team to do it. Nope. And they don't have the quarterback that can match those measurables that Lamar Jackson has.
Yeah,
he may be an inaccurate quarterback, but the man is really hard to bring down. So to try and mimic that sort of game with the inaccuracy that you're seeing from Jalen Hurts, it's just I'm all out, completely all out.
I would agree. I'm gonna start us off. I'm not gonna take my super hot take one yet, because I don't think a lot of people agree with one of them. The person that I am cautious on, I'm not completely out on him, but I am super cautious on, is Chase Claypool. This man came out as a rookie. He dominated on the season, right? He came out and just completely shocked everybody with his touchdowns, his athleticism, his speed, his size. Dude's huge. But as everyone should know, the Steelers renegotiated Big Ben's contract. Big Ben is back next season. Big Ben has a noodle arm. Big Ben cannot throw the ball downfield. He cannot push the ball. It floats. It hangs. They're looking for the under routes. Juju might be gone this year too. They might not re-sign him. So therefore, they're going to end up having to bring in another wide receiver and move someone like a Deontay Johnson down into the slot and possibly have James Washington take that number 2 role. Or he could be the number 1 and Claypool could be the number 2. I just don't think that Claypool is going to have as big of a season that he had last year, but he's going to be drafted too high. His draft capital is going to cost too much where there's going to be such a regression, especially a touchdown regression.
I agree with a lot of those takes. I would say if you can get Chase Claypool later in the draft, and I'm saying late.
That's why I said I'm cautious on him. If you can pick him up in the, I wouldn't say 7th or 8th. I would say 8th. Late 7th, early 8th starting point. If you can get him there, most definitely, because he'll probably be a wide receiver fringe 2-3 by the time the season's done with. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a good spot for him.
But I'm definitely more on the let's take a shot on a Brandon Ayuk with whoever than a guy like Chase Claypool, where you don't really know, is this going to be a boom game? Is this going to be a bust game? And if you do get him late, I mean, obviously every guy is going to have some sort of value, and you can get a Chase Claypool late, and he does start to ball out, and maybe Big Ben has this secret reserve of arm strength that we don't know about. Maybe you'll see some productivity out of there. But from what we saw last season and how just dismantled Big Ben looked, I don't think that I'm willing to take the shot on a Chase Claypool as maybe somebody else might be.
Yeah. So in home leagues, I'm thinking he's probably going to go, 5th round, 4th round. People are going to draft him as a high wide receiver too, in home leagues. Mm-hmm. If you happen to play in big money leagues or money with, like we play a keeper league where pretty much everyone's pretty savvy at the game of fantasy football, if he starts dropping, like he should, but he probably won't. But if he starts dropping, I would look at taking him late 7th, on, because at the late 7th, you're looking at the likes of DJ Moore had a bad season with Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think that that's going to get picked up. I don't think that it's going to be any better. And you're looking at like Jamison Crowder, Brandon Ayuk's around the same time, Marvin Jones, Antonio Brown. That's where you're looking at. And between him and T. Higgins, I'm taking a shot on T. Higgins.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what I'm saying. I think Burrow's going to be a lot better quarterback than Big Ben this year.
Agreed. The next guy that we're going to be talking about, maybe a little controversial for a lot of people. I know somebody in our league's going to be a little upset because he paid up to take him. It's J.K. Dobbins. Now, I know that a lot of people are thinking, J.K. Dobbins is going to get the work. We saw it coming into the end of the last season. And I think that tempers need to be met on his productivity. If you look at the backfield over there, it's real messy. You know that Lamar Jackson's going to have some carries. He's going to have a lot of carries. You know that Gus Edwards is going to be involved. And before you say, he's a secondary piece, I would take a look at the statistics behind that. He's involved every year that he's ever played.
I have statistics for you if you want them.
Yeah, go ahead, read them off, because I think he's a little too involved.
So J.K. Dobbins had 134 rushes. Lamar Jackson had 159. Gus Edwards had 144 rush attempts. Okay? That's ridiculous for an auxiliary piece.
Yeah, and if you look at their efficiency, if you look at their total yards and what they did with those carries, it's not that far off.
So Lamar Jackson had 1,005 yards, and he had, let me look at touchdowns here. Sorry, he had 7 rushing touchdowns. Mm-hmm. J.K. Dobbins had 805 rushing yards with 9 touchdowns. Gus Edwards had 723 with 6 touchdowns. To further drive your point home, J.K. Dobbins had 2 really big games, one in week 17 when it didn't really matter for who they were playing, and exploded for like 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, or 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
yeah, he definitely had a big game there. And I think that the way that you have to look at it is it's a Lamar Jackson run first team. It's going to be that way because that's how they want to do it. I think we're talking about Baltimore a lot right now. I like Baltimore. I don't want you guys to think I don't. But I just don't think that J.K. Dobbins is going to be the guy that you really think he's going to be. He's realistically, if you look at those statistics and it kind of pans out next season, which I do think he's going to get a little more work. But I don't think that he's going to be this 1,200 to 1,500 yard guy with 15 touchdowns. I don't think that's going to happen. And his current ADP is sitting around the 3rd round, which I'm not comfortable buying in as my running back 2, or potentially how your draft might break out, your running back 1. I'm not comfortable with that at all. Obviously, again, everybody's going to have some value. He falls to the 5th. I'm more inclined to take that. But it's still not a guy that I'm willing to plant my flag on and say, this is the dude.
Agreed. I would be looking, instead of taking a J.K. Dobbins in the 3rd, I'd be looking at taking the same type of productivity, which you hit on a little bit. J.K. might get a little more work this year, but I'm looking at taking the Gus Edwards in the 12th, where they're basically interchangeable. Yeah. You know what I mean? Gus Edwards, a lot of years, is not even drafted. And for someone who had 10 more rushes, granted he had, about 80 less yards, 70 less yards roughly, than someone, and 3 less touchdowns, like we already mentioned earlier. J.K. Dobbins only had 2 multiple touchdown games. That's 4 touchdowns. He had 2 in both of them. So that then there puts him to 7 to 6 touchdowns. J.K. Gus, you know what I mean? If you take out the multiple touchdown games, in the 120 yard game, the 120 yard game that he had, the big blow up game, week 17, garbage time game. The whole game was basically garbage time. You basically had the same exact running back with 9 rounds difference in value.
Yeah, that's why I am just all the way out.
I would agree.
Who was your last out guy?
Okay, this man came through and broke Randy Moss's single season receiving record for the Minnesota Vikings. And for that reason, I'm out on Justin Jefferson. He is going to be if you're in a keeper league like we are, the owner of this man is going to have so much value on him that he's going to probably want a second or a first round pick. He's probably going to go in home leagues in the second or the third round because everyone's going to see how explosive he was. And I promise I'm paying attention. I am just looking at my rankings over here. He is probably going to go pretty high, especially in home leagues. Right now, ADP in every league, he's going at the 404. That's a little bit much for me because I'm taking someone like Adam Thielen, Allen Robinson, like we mentioned, possibly a CD Lamb. Michael Thomas is going at 305. I expect Michael Thomas to still fall because the quarterback situation and he was injured all of last year. Or quite frankly, at the 404 with Justin Jefferson, I'm taking someone like a Cam Akers and Austin Eckler. If they're still a premium tight end in the fourth round, I'm taking them over Justin Jefferson because we talked about premium tight ends in the beginning of this. I just think that he is going to have so much value put on his name that he might not pay off what you are going to have to pay for him.
I do agree with part of what you're saying, but if he's in the second, that's too pricey, way too pricey. If he's in the third, I'm not super mad at that pick. I think that he clearly is the number one there.
You need Justin Jefferson to finish wide receiver 13 or higher to pay off at his average draft position right now.
And it's in the second.
He's the 15th wide receiver off the board. So if he goes 15 or 14, it's basically a wash. And if he basically has to be a wide receiver 1. He needs a wide receiver 12 or higher to pay off for what you're going to have to pay to get him at.
If he's in the same category as, let's say, an Allen Robinson or a CD Lamb or something like that, I am going to take Justin Jefferson over those guys. If that's where he falls in your guys' redraft leagues or anything like that, I'm going to take him before those guys. But am I going to take him in where I think his ADP is going to drive him to in the end of the second round? Am I going to take him over guys like, let's say, Michael Thomas? Probably not. I'm not going to do that. Or let's say Stephon Diggs. I think Stephon Diggs is probably going to be way too high. But there's a clear echelon of receivers that I don't think he's a part of. But I do think that he is a lot higher than the previous mentioned guys like a CeeDee Lamb or an Allen Robinson. I think he is a lot better of an option than those guys.
You think so?
Or even an Adam Thielen on the same team. I think he's more involved than Adam Thielen going forward.
Maybe. I could be wrong on this one. But like you were talking about earlier, I just think that his ADP, even though it's in the fourth round right now, home leagues is definitely going to be a lot higher than average. But I do think it's going to get driven up to mid to late second round.
Exactly, and if that's the case, you let that Vikings fan in your league take him, because if he's in the mid second round, way you're taking Justin Jefferson that high.
Exactly. The only wide receivers I'm looking at taking in the first and middle second round are Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, D-Hop, and it's pretty much it. Those three. Because other than that, I'm taking.
Did you mention Diggs?
I would take Diggs. Yeah, just because Josh Allen peppers him with targets. I did not mention him, but yeah.
Yeah.
I would take those four. Those would be the four that I'm really, really looking at to mix in the end of the first or the second. But normally I'm going to go running back. Really, realistically, it's going to be Devontae, Tyreek Hill. Those four. Over a tight end if I were going to try to take a tight end. But normally it's going to be running back if I can, possibly. But if there's just no running back that I like, then I'll take those.
Let me ask you a couple ifs. How about between DK Metcalf and Justin Jefferson? Who are you going to take? During the same rounds, let's say the end of the third. DK or Justin Jefferson?
DK. You've seen him do it.
AJ
Especially
Brown
if
or
Russell's
Justin
still
Jefferson?
there. AJ Brown. Derrick Henry's going to keep the play action alive in Tennessee.
Mike Evans or Justin Jefferson?
Are we talking same ADP? Same? What are we
I'm just
talking
throwing out some names that I think that could be comparable to Justin Jefferson.
Probably Mike Evans, just because he's going to get so many touchdown throws from Tom Brady.
I think that's where my line is drawn, is a Mike Evans or even I think a Chris Godwin. I'm probably taking Justin Jefferson over those two. And that's where I think that's where my line is drawn.
I think I'm taking Mike Evans just for strictly touchdown potential. I think Mike Evans could have a year where he has 700. It could be a under 1,000-yard receiving year for the first time in his career, but still have double-digit touchdowns, like high double-digit touchdowns, like close to 15. Yeah, spicy takes coming in with spicy ones.
Spicy takes. I think that does it for our outs. Do you have any honorable mentions for this category?
That I don't. I don't got nothing new.
No, I think we covered a wide berth of people right there that we could keep talking forever on who we're out on, honestly.
Yep.
But I'd like to get to a little section, little top 5 section here.
Round it out with some trivia.
Top 5 statistical seasons for people in the NFL.
No,
so
you at home, no cheating either. Don't
be looking it up. Let's go off of just what you really thought personally. Let's go with top 5 interceptions thrown by quarterbacks. Who do you think
number
is on
one?
that
Drew
list?
Lock. Drew Lock is on that list.
Okay.
Number 2, the receiver, is it Hamilton, that ended up playing quarterback for Denver that one game? He's definitely on that list. Touchdown interception ratio.
No, not ratio.
Just straight up
total interceptions. So no, he's on that list.
Man, I wish this was last year because I'd say Jameis.
It was cheating. He's half the league.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely saying Drew Lock.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to go out on a limb and say that 4 interceptions. I know Tom Brady threw 12. I don't know if that's top 5, though. I'm trying to go through quarterbacks. Mitch threw a lot. Mitch is on that list. Trubisky.
Mm-hmm.
Lock, Trubisky, probably Goff. I think he threw like 16.
Mm-hmm. You got one more?
Gardner, Minshew.
All right, so here's the real list, and I don't know if you guys at home got this either, but it is Carson Wentz with 15.
Jeez.
Shocking.
Jesus.
Shocking that he got
That's number
that
5?
many. He's number 1.
Oh.
Starting off at the top.
Dang.
Drew Lock tied him with 15. Kirk Cousins had 13.
Okay.
Russell Wilson had 13. And Goff, 13.
And then,
so,
dang.
Yeah, that was a pretty shocking list right there. And you look at
was that postseason included?
I'm not too sure. I think it might have been. This is off of Pro Football Focus's stats, so
okay.
I'm pretty sure that this has the postseason involved as well. Let's go to the next category. This is where we're going to really.
Hopefully, I don't do as bad.
I would have bombed it too. Let's go with the. This is going to sell home our take on late quarterbacks.
Okay,
it's going to be kind of shocking to you as well. So passing yards. Who had the most passing yards?
The most passing yards?
Top five guys had passing yards.
Patrick Mahomes had the most. Justin Herbert's in the top 5. I believe, was it? I don't know. I'm lost. I think Matt Ryan might be in there. Yeah, just give him to me.
All right, I'll just give him to you. Just think about it for a second. Deshaun Watson actually led the league in passing yards.
Okay.
48-23 is what he had. Then Mahomes at 47-40. Tom Brady, 75-year-old Thomas Brady, 46-33.
Dang.
Matt Ryan, 45-81.
Dang, so I went 2 for 5 here.
And Josh Allen,
45-44.
Right.
Man.
Now, out of all those guys, who do you think got drafted in the second round?
Patty Mahomes.
He was second on that list. Do you think the difference between Pat Mahomes and, let's say, Josh Allen was that big? Where Josh Allen, you probably got him in the 8th.
Yeah, I was saying it's probably 5-round difference.
Oh, yeah. Big difference.
Think of Matt Ryan.
I don't know how fantasy viable Matt Ryan was towards the end of the season.
He wasn't.
But you could see you could see his value towards the beginning of the season when you're streaming quarterbacks, and something that you don't have to spend up on. Because I don't know how many leagues Matt Ryan went in the top 8 rounds. I don't think he would have. And it would have been a viable streaming option going throughout the season. So this last one's going to sell home the tight end point. And I just want to make sure that I'm just going to give you guys that premises.
Man. Can we do 3? Because this 1 for 5 and 2 for 5 is a little sore on the pride.
No way. We got to go all 5. This one specifically counts for the 5. I'm sure you guys already know where I'm going with this. Name the top 5 leaders in receptions.
Leaders in receptions? Straight up receptions?
Just straight up receptions.
Stephon Diggs, D-Hop, Devontae Adams, Travis Kelsey. And then the 5th one, I'm going to go out on a limb and say... hold on. I'm lost. I don't know.
I'll just give it to you. So the top 5 read off as Stephon Diggs at 127 had a monster year. 127 is a lot. It's a lot of catches, and he had double the targets. He was getting peppered, like you said. DeAndre Hopkins, another guy that just got peppered a lot. But towards the end of the season, you were seeing a lot of the deficiencies in that arm that was throwing him the ball.
Kyler Murray.
I think, I was just saying, Kyler Murray got hurt, and it was pretty evident.
Oh, didn't they bring in a CFL quarterback for a game?
I don't even remember.
I believe so.
Yeah. Devontae Adams at 115. Tay definitely had
3 for 3.
Definitely killed it last year. Darren Waller at 107. Darren Waller.
Dang.
Travis Kelsey at 105. You want to see where that correlation goes to. The last 2 guys in that list were tight ends. You drafted up to get one of those guys, and you could have got a Stephon Diggs way later in the draft.
Your camera's frozen, buddy. Nope, there's 2 of me. And we're back. You're good. Anyways, say that last point again. Those last 2 guys were tight ends.
Sorry about that. We had to cut out for a second because my camera shut off. The last 2 that we were talking about was Darren Waller and Travis Kelsey. Now, Travis Kelsey you had to pay up for, and you got what you paid for. That's a receiver 5 in almost every category that you could have seen. He was on fire. But so was Darren Waller. And if George Kittle would have stayed healthy, I bet he would have been on this list too. He would have been somewhere near it.
He would have been him or Waller probably would have flip flop. Well, technically Waller beat Kelsey, but those 3 are interchangeable on that list.
Exactly.
Yeah. Dang, man, I went 4 for 5 on that one and couldn't think of the 5th one. We got good. I'm glad we did 5 because I redeemed myself. So.
All right. Well, I think that's all I had. That's it for this episode. Anything you want to add there, Aaron?
No, I'm good, man. I mean, until next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, leave some comments. It really helps the YouTube algorithm if you like what you see. For now, starting out this year, we're going to upload on Tuesdays, so you'll get a live video on Tuesday. We're working the Spotify angle in case that you want to listen to it in your car and you don't really like watching things on YouTube and you like to listen to stuff when you drive. We're starting to work the Spotify angle to see how we can post on that. We're new to the game, so please be sure to just like the videos, help us out.
Yeah, I really appreciate it if you guys give us a subscribe and tune in next week when we probably start talking about your mock drafts and go into that direction as well, because we want to get you guys, like I said before, prepared to take home the ship. So until next time, guys.